Good morning, everybody. I probably started this video several times in my head, probably dozens, but it's not easy to get on here and make these for me. It's the same as public speaking and everything else. I'm a bundle of nerves beforehand. It's a disaster in my head when I do it, but somehow it turns out okay and people get something out of it. Um, so this is on the Morgan's call retreat that I just came back from. It was last weekend. And I wanted to share some of the things, some of my experiences, and some of the things that went on. So, first of all, getting there was really hard. We had a lot of different things that happened in the 2 months coming up to leaving for the Morrigan's call retreat. And each one completely altered how I was getting there, who was going with me. And none of these things were things we could control. These were things that, happened. And like our internet went out for a month. And it was because the company was having problems with their towers. And so I missed deadlines to get to the retreat. And so that got a little sketchy. A water line broke between our house and the meter. And here in the country where we're at, for some reason, it's really hard to get workers that actually show up. So it was like 4 or 5 weeks of dealing with that. But the way we do things when all these things come up, we knew that we had no control. We were just feeling the effects of some other cause. And so we just flow. And that's what our family does. Something comes up and we have no control over it. And so we just find ways to work it. And it was fine. We flowed, we did it. We didn't stress out, we didn't freak, we didn't do all these things because there was nothing to do but wait. And then things changed and we weren't able to go as a family. And so that was the plan, is me, my husband, and our triplets were going to go together. And that changed. So now I was going by myself. And I'll admit, there was a lot of trepidation and fear on traveling by myself because it's not something we do. When we travel, we always travel as a family. And so I've always got my support there no matter what happens. My husband's there and my kids are there. And so there's no worry, there's no separation. And for me, that means a lot. And I've gotten really comfortable and used to that. Should have known I got comfortable, thus the Morrigan was going to change things and make me stand on my own 2 feet during it. A week before I was supposed to leave, I was going to drive my car. And a week before, I took it in for an oil change and all this. And nope, head gasket's going out. So can't drive it on the trip. So scrambling to find out how I was going to get there. And we decided, okay, never taken a bus before. We'll try Greyhound. Never again. But it wasn't the people. The people were great. I had wonderful conversation. I met tons of people. I got to hear all kinds of different stories. I got to see the country as we drove, because when I drive, I don't focus on scenery. I focus on the road. And so I would have missed all that. So that was kind of cool. The bus ride itself, being in a sitting position for 30 plus hours, was really difficult. The lateness of the buses, which caused me to be late for another bus at the very beginning. So in Nashville, the bus was an hour late, which made it late for my bus exchange in Indianapolis, which only happens once a day. And so they ended up changing all my things, but I was going to have a 22-hour layover in New York. I don't do big cities anymore. And New York is like the biggest city and a place that I never wanted to visit in the first place. And so 22 hours by myself in a bus station didn't seem very kosher to me. And I broke at that point. I I was just like, am I even supposed to be doing this? What am I going to do? I can't do a 22-hour layover there. And so I called Deborah and I poured it all out to her. She was one of the people that is staff of the Morgan's Call Retreat. And we've been friends and talking online for quite some time. And I trust her, and she's helped me a lot with this. And she was also my encouragement of going to the Morgan's Call Retreat and my encouragement to present at the Morgan's Call Retreat. So I called her and I was like, I don't know what to do. I can't do this. And she was like, it's okay. We've got you. There's another person that's coming from New York. She's taking the train up. And then it dawned on me, oh, yeah, it's New York. They have good public transportation. It's not like in the Midwest. In the Midwest, you're lucky if the bus is a decent public transportation. We just don't have that infrastructure here. But they do have it there. And so she hooked me up with Bridget, and we worked out. She told me how to do the train thing and how to get to Union Station, and met me on the train at her next stop. And so it all worked out. It was rough. It was hard getting there. And there were times that I really questioned on if all this was happening to not make me go. But everything I was getting, all my readings, all my communication, my trance work with the Morrigan and with Kari, it was going great. It was, oh, we're doing this, keep working on this, don't forget about this, we're good. And I was like, I'm not good. And so, and I felt very alone during this. And I had a friend, she's a very close friend to me, and we do a lot of magical work together. And she even got to the point after the car thing, and she was like, okay, I need to do a reading because I don't feel good about this trip. I maybe you shouldn't be going. She was having the same thought as me, but when she pulled cards, same thing. You're doing this and we're doing great, and we just got to keep going. And I was like, okay, I get, I'm not going to question the Morgan. I'm just going to do it. And to be honest, I probably would have done it anyway. I'm pretty stubborn. So went through all this, got to the Morgan's Call Retreat, and I heard multiple stories from other people about how they had trouble getting there, how they had all these things going on that, really challenged their getting there. And it felt like a test. So a test of endurance, not a test of faith, but a test of our own personal strength. And it's not what we can handle, it's how we handle it. And through all of this, besides my one break, when I had 22-hour layover, I actually broke then. I had tears. But everything else, I think we flowed well. And even then, it was only momentary tears, and talked with Deborah, and everything was fine. So we do get challenged and we do get tested, but I don't always think it is the kind of test that we think of. It's not a test of how much can we endure before we break. It's how we endure the things that are challenged with us that we have no control over and we just have to flow with. So that's my getting there. Because I had to take the bus, all my stuff, including my tent, my sleeping bag, my clothes, my books, all these things had to fit in one bag. And I did it. They all fit in one bag, and I got there. And so I earned a nickname of Mary Poppins. I could see it. It's okay. And so through this, we got there, we signed up, I set up my tent, got all my stuff in there, and I started feeling this calmness. And I was still a little nervous because, I knew a couple of people from online that we had talked, for a while, but we live in very different places. And so we've never met in person. And so I didn't know anybody. And I was going into this without knowing anybody, without having anybody that I knew there in that sense. So I didn't know how that was going to work out, and how I was going to connect with people. But the interesting thing is it happened really quick. We just started conversations and talking with each other and sharing aspects. And that was really great. I would have to say the biggest thing for me out of the entire retreat was that it was the connecting with other people. And it wasn't hard, it was really easy. And there was this sense, it wasn't like a festival, it wasn't like a bunch of strangers. The moment that I started, being present in that space, it was like family. And that's how it felt. It felt like this big family. Um, I didn't see any drama. I didn't see any craziness. I didn't see fighting, um, or arguing or anything like that. It was just joy to be together. It was just joy to be in that space. And I realized that I needed that. It's been a really long time, especially in the magical community. Um, I'll be honest, I'd never really felt that in the magical community before. And I had connected with other groups and stuff when I was really young, that didn't go well. And so that added to my trepidation of going in. But that's okay. We learn and we grow. And this was perfect timing for me. And there seemed to be a hidden question, something that all of these things beforehand, the trip of the getting there, and what was happening when I was there was like this hidden question, this hidden thing I was supposed to do. I needed to make a choice, but I didn't know what the question was. I didn't know what the it was. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to figure it out by the end of the weekend. It's going to come. They had a bunch of different classes and stuff, different presenters presenting different aspects. There was one that was a seal. And so I don't do well with guided meditation. It's just never been my thing, and I've never really connected to it. I just listen to the person drone on the whole entire time, and I really don't have experience in there. It never puts me into trance work. It never puts me into a meditative state. And so in this seal class, it was the seal of the Morrigan. And I loved the fact that she made one. I'm really interested to learn more about that process of how that was created, specifically, just because I'm a learner. I want to know things. And I could see the usefulness of that kind of a tool, but tweaking it for, making specific ones for what I want or would use it for. But it was a great seal. Nikki is the one that gave the speech, and I loved it. And there was a point where she did a guided meditation, and I was like, okay, these don't work for me, but like always, I'm going to give it a try. I'm going to give it my all. And I was floored, because after like the first sentence or two, she completely faded. I don't have any clue what she said. But what happened is I had a vision, and it was this really bright sun. And as it started fading backwards, it turned into the eye of a raven head, just the head. And then the raven came up and flew. And as its arms, its wings reached this kind of a stance as it was coming up, it ended up transforming into this large standing stone. And then it turned into a coyote. And then it turned into a bear. And then it turned into a deer. And then it turned into the vulture flying. And when the wings went up like this, with the vulture flying, it turned into this kind of like a pyramid-y temple thing, but a little bit more rounded on the top and stuff. It was more of a cavey like, and that'll come in later. And then it melted down into this river and flowing outward. And it kind of felt like the life flowing outward. And then there were all these little people gathering. And you remember those little clothesline people that we used to make as kids, the wooden ones that had the little round head and the little sticky body? That's what these people were like. Um, they were just these little stick head people. And then they started shifting and moving and turning into those kind of people that you see on logos that are real flowy and have the, kind of archy arms and stuff. And they all started dancing in this way. And then it was done. And I've had lots of vision before in trance work and in other aspects, but never in a guided meditation. And so for me, it was such a moving experience. And I think part of that was because we're all in the same space together and we all have this common thing, even though we may look at the Morrigan different and we may see different things and our path is personalized for us. That energy was still there connecting us. And because we were in physical space together, we really had that intermixing of the energies. And so I think that's part of why this worked for me this time. I don't think it had anything to do with the guided meditation itself, but the space that took place in the space where my head was. And so I think that's what it was. And I also think, the Morrigan had a lot of messages. She had a lot of messages. Like I said, I went in and there's a question, but I didn't know what the question was. And so first ritual, and I loved their rituals. I will be super honest. I loved their rituals. It was done so different than what I had seen other people do online and what I had experienced when I was younger in a different group. These rituals were very much, they had chanting that brought us all together and kind of melded our energies together. They told a story. And in that way, that's really powerful. When we tell stories, when we do like theater tells a story and we're there and we're present and we feel that energy and it draws us in and it gives us something more than just watching a show or, just hearing somebody talk. It's different. It's different when it's a story. And it was beautifully done. First ritual was all about letting go. And we had these stones that we were given at the beginning of ritual. And the thing there's a part of the ritual where it's very interactive. We go through the different points of the Morrigan, the different aspects of the Morrigan, and get something personal. So the first one, the stone, we were giving something away. And I didn't really have anything to lose, per se. But the only thing I could think of to imbue my stone with is I knew that there's something there, something hidden. And I wanted whatever was blocking it from my sight to be gone. I needed to know what was going on. I needed to know what it was. And so that's what I imbued my stone with and put into the sacred bowl. And the very last station, we received an Om. And I received the Om of rebirth. And it hit me. And I didn't even look at it. I just held it in my hand during ritual and carried it with me. I didn't look at it until I got to, after ritual, after we had come down the hill. That's when I looked at it. And so I didn't even know what it was, but I felt connected to it. And so we finished out ritual, and on the way back, there was a waterfall back in the woods, and I kept hearing it. And finally, I saw it, and I had to keep stopping just to stare at it. There was something very powerful there, and it took about 3 times of stopping and just being present and watching the waterfall that I understood. I understood in the waterfall, it was like all the knowledge, all the things we had gathered, all the experience was being poured down into this stream and getting very calm once it got there. And so it was like the cycle of gaining all the knowledge and then having it flow into this space where we reconcile all that knowledge, where we are going through it and sifting and figuring out what works and what doesn't work, and for us, and what we need to keep and what we need to let go. And so it really kind of fit with the ritual too. And at that point I was like, okay, there's something going on. And there was this outdoor building like structure. Can't even think of the name of it right now. But it was like a big gazebo type thing. And it was right next to the river, because that river from that waterfall flowed all the way behind my camp and then flowed under the bridge and went on this other side. And there's a part where it went under the bridge where there was this stone coming out like this. And so it created 2 different paths for the water. One, a straight path, just going on down this little river and then flowing into another waterfall. And then there was this path that was behind the stone that just kind of swirled around and taking its time, and you know, almost a wasting time is what it felt like, because it eventually would go back into the river and flow down. It wasn't like it was that stagnant. In the top of the water, you could barely see the movement, but you knew the current underneath, and you could see the current underneath. And so I was like, okay, so I was seeing what she was talking about. There are 2 ways to do this with this choice. You know, I have a choice to make about this question, this thing, this it, and I can either just go and flow with it and do what I'm supposed to do, or I can sit over here and flounder and waste time and make it take a whole lot longer. But in the end, I was still going that way. You know, the choice wasn't about where I was going. The choice was about how I was going to get there. And so I was like, wow, okay, I understand. And you know me, I'm going to do what you tell me to do. This is the relationship that Morrigan and I have. She's never asked me to do anything that goes against me or that's going to harm me. Everything has always been to move me forward and push me forward and my own growth. And so I was like, okay, so what is the question? I understand the choice. I understand which way we're going and what will happen. I see the pattern, but I need to know what the choice is. And so I got out her cards and I drew 2 cards. And it didn't give me an answer. What it gave me was my Earth 5 card, which is all about choice and an illusion of choice and illusions in choice. And then it had the Seneschal card. She was basically saying, and I heard her say it, choose Seneschal. And Seneschal is my a very long term that I have used with her instead of priestess, and it has only been recently that I have started to reclaim what priestess means for me. And because for me it is service. It's not a title, it's not power, it's not any of these things. Being a priestess is an act of service, period. It's responsibility. And that's how I view it. And so, but because it's been so twisted in our community and I see people use it in such different ways. I didn't want to use that word, so I just kept the seneschal word that she gave me in the very beginning up until recently. Like I said, I've accepted it and I've decided that language needs to be reclaimed in certain areas and definition needs to be reclaimed in certain areas. And so, but basically, she was just like, choose, seneschal. And I was like, what's the question? You know, I have no problem choosing, and I will do the path you set for me. But I don't know what it is. And so, yeah, I was still at that point. And I was like, okay. And so there was another point where I went to another class that was all about fire divination. And fire divination in me is kind of iffy. If I take a picture of the fire, a moment in time of it, then I can get messages. I've even had messages when I'm looking at the fire through my phone and I can see it there. I can see the visions. I can see the messages. I get things very clear. Looking at the fire by itself, not a thing. Just doesn't work for me. But again, I was like, okay, we're doing this. I'm giving it my all. We'll see what happens. You know, always walk in with faith and hope. And so when we went to do the divination part, again, she was doing a little bit of guiding message, I think. Like I said, you know, same as the other one, I totally didn't hear what anybody was saying or what was going on around me. I sat down in front of the fire and I decided, okay, I'm going to stare at this one point in the fire. And it didn't take long before something else morphed. And let me find... Okay. I wrote all these down because I write all of my things down as soon as they happen. That way I can look back through them and really reflect on each part. And so again, in the fire, I was looking towards the base instead of up in the flames. And there were two logs and they were kind of crossing like this, and then there was a bottom piece. Well, these two logs started to get really dark, almost like black looking to me. I mean, it wasn't that they were changing, it's just how my eyes were changing it. And so it ended up being like this cave. And the front part, the entrance of the cave, was very dark and black, so you could see the clear outline. And then behind the cave were the embers, and so they were really, really bright. And like shadows, it was shadows, not so much the flame or the smoke. It was just like shadows started appearing. First was the head of a coyote, and it was right at the entrance, and its eyes were flaming, and they were, you know, would flame up and then go down just a little bit and flame up. I mean, they never went to darkness, but it was that flickering back and forth of the flame. And it was standing at the entrance like it was guarding. And it started to fade. And then again, these little wooden people head kind of things. There were all these little round heads. And they were all kind of moving like when you see embers, and embers just kind of flow and the light travels. And that's what it was doing with all these little heads. And then they started to fade in a crescent moon going this way. So on waning, which is really weird because I don't draw my crescent moons like that. I usually am the other direction. But it was a waning crescent moon shadow that came up. And then this big bright burst of light behind it, and it got really bright, and then the moon disappeared, and it was like this huge sun. And then it faded back down, and I saw this symbol, which is a personal symbol to me. It's on the back of my Moldavite, and that's really where that started, when I got my Moldavite quite a while back. And there's this symbol on the back. It's a white piece of something that got caught in the Moldavite when it formed. and it makes this weird, almost like a question mark, and a really fancy one in a weird way, with another section to it. But I consider it my dragon head, and I don't work with dragons, but to me, that's what it looked like. And so, sacred fire, personal fire, that's what it meant to me. And I saw that, and then the smoke traveled in front of my cave area, and it started just like a misty, and then got really, really dark. And it was like it made everything disappear behind this veil, and it was gone. When the smoke cleared, I didn't see any of this. I didn't even see the cave anymore. And so again, this really powerful message, in a way that I generally don't get messages like that, in that way, with these tools. And it really had to do with the tools, because I get very clear messages in trance. I get very clear visions, and I hear my deity, which is a little strange to some people. I get that. But it is what it is, but not with these particular tools. So again, I was taken back, and coyote, it keeps coming up, because there's something very specific with coyote, and something I'm moving into, and we'll get to that later, another time, another video. But I did want to put it out there that there is something specific with coyote. And so after this, I was like, wow, okay. Then we had a ritual on shape-shifting. And don't quote me on the order of all this. This is, I kind of go back and forth, and time during this retreat didn't really seem to exist very well for me. Everything just kind of flowed back and forth. So the next ritual was about her shape-shifting. And again, chanting and the stories. And then there was a part where it was interactive, where we went to the shape to get a message. And because Coyote's been big with me, and this is really strong with the Morrigan right now, I decided to go to the wolf, and I got a message. Again, didn't just held it in my hand for the rest of the time until ritual was over, and then I looked at it. And when I looked at it, it was Mars. So you're talking passion and emotions, things of that nature. This is what I equate Mars to. It's that fiery strength, and that not just aggressive emotion, but very deep, passionate emotion, very fiery emotion. And then there was a torch. Light the torch, carry the flame, do your job. And then again, I got an ogham on there that was about balance and challenges. Finding balance in the challenges, accepting the challenges, and creating balance within them. By this point, I was seeing what the it was. I understood. Even though every single one of these things has been telling me this, even though the atmosphere of what we were in was telling me this, a part of me was resistant. And I'll explain why. So the it was building community here in our space where we live. And I'm not talking big community. I'm not talking massive amounts of people. I am talking about forming her community here, bringing them together. And I'm hoping small group. That'd be nice. But creating sacred space for her here in the middle. We live in the Midwest. And you're talking Kentucky, Indiana area. And we have this particular Morrigan group is East Coast. And then there's another one with Ravina on West Coast. She doesn't have solid sacred space in that way in the Midwest that I am aware of. I've not run across it, haven't heard about it, haven't found anybody, and so she wants it built here. And there's a lot of challenges with that. Not even to say the least of how to find the people. I know the work, I know how to build. This isn't my first community, but this is different. And this is very specific to her and also Kari. They will both be part of this community because that's where she's going with this. And so I am going to do it. I am going to, do everything possible to make that happen. I have already think I chosen a space to help make it into a sacred space for her with this group. But I don't know how to find these people. And I don't know where I'm going to find them at. I don't know what, the biggest hurdle right now is how to even find her people. So we're going to try, and we're going to do what we can do, and no matter what, we'll make that space for her here. But there was resistance for a few reasons. One, I don't even know how to do that here. You're talking Bible Belt. You're talking about the pagans that I've met so far in this area, and the witches that I've met are very much either not deity oriented, or they're groups that I wouldn't want to participate in. We'll just put it at that. They are some, group. They just no. So yeah, it was hard to say out loud that this is the next thing, my next piece of work that I have to do. And most people would be excited, and most people would be, all, yay, we're going to create community. And I want to be that way. I do. And the actual community part of it, I'm so excited about. It would be so great being physically with people in that kind of space. Being at the Morrigan's Call Retreat was that. It was that kind of community. It was that kind of larger family, and very much that energy. And I crave that energy. I want that energy. There's things that go with that energy that I don't particularly want, because there's challenges there, and there's some hardship when it comes to people and dealing with people. But it is what it is. It's not anything that will stop me. It's not anything that I can't deal with. It's just don't want to deal with. I don't like drama. And so I don't want to deal with drama. I don't want to deal with crazy and all that. And that always seems to be a part. But it wasn't there at the Morrigan's Call Retreat. It was very much that togetherness. It was very much that peaceful and true family feel. And so that gave me hope. It gave me hope and showed me ways to do this and build this without or limited detrimental kind of, or bad, not detrimental, but irritating challenges that you have to deal with when you deal with other people. So yeah, again, had beautiful closing ritual, and they did a piece with the pentagram, and they had redone it for them in their group, and I'd never been drawn to the pentagram, the way that it's always been set, and the way people talk about it. It's just not a tool that I use. It's not a tool that I was ever drawn to. So I didn't participate in that part of the ritual. I was just very respectful, and I said my own prayer during that in my head. Sorry. And Oh, hang on. Sorry. But it got me thinking when I got home, and there was a vision. I was doing some communication with Morrigan, and she gave me a vision of the pentagram in our way, in a way that I can work with it. So for me, the way that they had the air on one side and the one, it was backwards, which is common for me in the Morrigan. It's like the first message she ever gave me is everything is backwards, and that holds true for my relationship and my work and my perspectives. So I had to literally flip the pentagram, not upside down, but just reverse. And for me, it became for invoking and so bringing in and then taking out. So bringing in, it starts with blood of my blood. Ancestors, I work in the way of blood ancestors. Doesn't mean you have to. This is just mine. So it's blood of my blood, Morrigan Kari, spirit of the land, ancestral soul. Um, and so it's bringing in all those elements that I work with. It's bringing in all those guides, those spirits that I use and I connect with and bring in. And so backwards, when you're releasing, you're, going backwards. So it starts with soul. Everything coming in is bringing inward. Everything going out is taking outward. So it's ancestral soul, spirits of the land, Kari, Morrigan, blood of my blood. And I love this. I never thought I would use the pentagram or the banishing, the way that other people do it and things like that. But it's really cool. I'm really into it the way that the Morrigan and I built it. And I think that's something that everybody really needs to keep in mind. When you see these things, instead of looking at it like, oh, we have to do it this way, because you don't. What you need to do is, if something catches you, if it inspires you, if there's something that you want to use, but you can't connect with it in the way that it's given, change it. Make it something personal. Don't try to fit yourself in somebody else's box. Create your own. That is like the biggest thing I can tell people over and over and over. Create your own. Wow. Okay. Sorry. Big B. Well, it's one of those crazy Chinese, I'm going to kill you bees. And we have one that hangs around in the valley now. And so, whew, sometimes he comes up on the porch and it freaks me out. But you make things yourself. This is your path. Your connection to divine is between you and divine. Nobody can tell you that, oh, this is the path and this is how you have to work. That's not true. You have your own path. There are things, lessons you need for your own growth. There are your own desires and things you want to achieve. This path is specific to you. We can find commonality and places where we can all be together and share that energy and similarity, but it's not going to be the same. And that's okay. We need, as a community, be okay with this. We need to understand that there are larger space where we come together as community and we can be as community, still as individuals, but part of a whole. And we can have all of our personal. And our personal is built by our experience and by experimenting. And so we need to be open to this. We need to do these things in order for us to grow on our own path and grow as people. And I went way off base. I'm so sorry. But anyway, these things are really important to me. And so you'll hear me say them over and over and over and over. I did get these beautiful earrings there. Coyote teeth. It was the coyote teeth that drew me to these because of Coyote and what's happening with Coyote in my life. And so it was really important for me to have these. And I had to jump through some hoops because I only brought so much cash. And they were kind of expensive, but I was so drawn. And then when I got them, I realized that there's a little garnet and then the moon at the end. And what I've realized is the Morrigan ancestors in the garnet, Kari, the moon. It is another piece that incorporates the three main aspects of my practice, the three main aspects of my devotions and connections and bonds. And so, yeah, another powerful thing for me. And there was a lot of that during the Morrigan's Call retreat, even though it was more in spaces beyond ritual and stuff. The most impactful spaces were in conversation. They were in those moments that I took alone, just to breathe her in and be with her in those moments. And the moments where she showed me things that I couldn't get away from, and they all aligned with each other. They all flew with each other. It was all the same message. And I'm always in awe when that happens, no matter how many times it happens, because it happens all the time. But there's still that deep beauty of awe and just unbelievable. And my rational mind cannot comprehend how this is happening and how these things fall the way they do and how they are always consistent. But that's connection with divine. For me, that's how I see it. It's connection with divine. It's communication with divine. It's that partnership, that bond that we have built together. And it's so strong. And it didn't happen overnight. I mean, years of work. I mean, I really worked hard at building our bond and getting to the space that we are in, with me and the Morrigan, me and Kari, me and my ancestral soul and the blood of my blood and land spirit. I'm still working on land spirit. Let's be honest. I'm getting much better, but we're still in the beginning stages of bond, in that way of communication. So, but it's worth the work. Where I'm at now and how clear communication is and how easy that communication flows back and forth, that's a culmination of all the work I've done. And it's worth everything because it's amazing. And no matter how many times it happens, no matter how many, moments that I have, which is often, it makes everything so worth it. All the challenges, all the trial and error, all the doubt of self and personal confusion as we start on these paths of building bonds. So worth it. And the Morrigan's Call retreat showed me that we can, in our community, and I'm talking about pagan witch community, we can have these kinds of communities, these in small or large, that can be that space, that beautiful, close-knit space. And there was a lot of new faces. It wasn't like all these people had been together all this time. There were a lot of new people there too, like I was new. But it was like an immediate enfolding into this family. And so that experience gave me hope and gave me inspiration. And So yeah, I'm going to do my job because that's my job. I have responsibility and I have work for the Morrigan that I do. Um, People say there is, you can always say no and all this. And I'm sure for most people that's true. Um, but because I know what's behind everything that the Morrigan gives me, I don't say no. I don't even feel that I have that choice to say no. And that's okay because it's never detrimental. There is always reason behind what she does and where she pushes me and the job she gives me. And so I'm going to do it and I'm going to flow. And she'll help me figure out how to build. And I know the structure, I know all of the pieces. It's about finding the people. So I'm going to find them. And it's okay. We're going to be okay. So, in closing, the Morgan's Call Retreat was an amazing experience. Even with all the challenges and all the stress that happened in trying to get there, and even the way home from there was really hard, and I had some other issues, but it was worth every moment. Just like the building bond with her, even it's hard at times and there are things that are out of our control and there's things that we have to do and it's patience and it's time and it is so worth it, so worth it. I feel so connected to this family and I've met some incredible people that I dearly hope that we keep in contact and we message each other. You know who you are. um because they're a part of me now. Um, I feel that. And I feel this bond to them that is family we build. And there is family we build. And this is it for me. And I cannot wait until next year. Even though it's a long trip for me and it's a hard trek, we're going to start planning different. And we're going to start making sure that we have backup plans to the plans to make sure, because I know, especially my son, he's going to want to experience this because he is on this path with me and he's doing these things as well. And I think for my daughters, it would be a good experience for them to see these things. And I need my husband. He is my guardian in all ways, and he makes sure that when I'm in these spiritual spaces, that my physical self is taken care of and in a safe space. Because when I'm in spiritual space, I won't take care of physical self because I can't I can't focus there when I'm really focused here. It's a balance issue. I realize this. But it's a balance issue that I don't need to try and balance. At least not right now. It's not my work right now. I have a guardian to take care of me during this. And so that works. So if you were even thinking about connecting with the Morrigan, or you are feeling her presence, or maybe you work with her, maybe you're dedicated to her, you really need to check out this group. You really need, I highly, highly encourage everybody to, if you're in this space with the Morrigan, to try and get to this retreat next year. It really is a life-changing experience. And I am really, really blessed to have been able to go. And I'm really blessed with the people that surrounded me there and the friendships and that bond that happened. It's amazing. It's very life-changing. Also, check out, do find other people's stuff. Everybody's been writing about their experiences. There's blogs out there talking about the Morrigan's Call Retreat 2022. There's people that are blogging. There are people that are sharing on Facebook and giving all these experiences and stuff. So go read them. Go. I think a lot of them mirror each other in ways, because of that family like aspect and that coming together connectedness. So go check them out. Go find them. Go listen to what other people are saying, because it's really amazing. And if you don't have community in your area, find them. You know, I can't tell you how to find them, but put yourself out there and try and find them, because there is a difference. There is a difference between being online in a group and having a solid in-person group. And I know that's hard for people to say, and it kind of goes against what we say in our community. And there is a lot of bonding we can do online. You know, we're talking energy here. I'm not saying that online is bad, but I am saying that having that in person, I think, is really important. At least it is for me now. Even with its challenges, even with the things that are unknown to me that's going to happen, it is important. It's important. The energy is different. The work is different. That bond is a little bit different. So yeah. Sorry this has been long. I hope you got something out of it. I just wanted to share some of my experience, some of my thoughts on this. And yeah. So have a wonderful day and explore your own stuff. And know that in the end, it's a lot of work, but in the end, it's so worth it. So worth it. Take care.